Hey world, my name's Cynthia and this is the second race in the Grand Slam that I wanted to tell you about. I completed Vermont 2 weeks ago and it was a wonderful race. You know, the first one was Western States, and during that I told you a lot about the things that I had used. Well, this race basically I used the same things, but it was a completely different race. So I'm going to focus on just telling you about Vermont itself and the race. Vermont, obviously being on the East Coast, is different than the mountains in the West Coast. Now, it is very hilly. There aren't necessarily mountains, but it's continual up and down for that entire 100 miles. I don't think there is a single part of that race that tends to be flat at all. But because you don't always think about the fact that it doesn't look like a really high hill at times, it feels very runnable, so it's very easy to get going too fast. So anyway, that is part of the difference between the two places on either side of the country. But to start at the beginning, my friend Jonathan Lundy and Alicia Heiny, we went up together, drove our 17 hours and got to Vermont. And where Vermont starts, the race, is in a huge campground, or actually it's a farm. It's like a farm, but everybody brings their tents and they put them up, and we all camped together the night before. And horses are also part of this race. So not only are there people running 100 miles, but there are horses running beside you at the same time. So the night before, they have a pre-race meeting, and then they have a big buffet, and all the people are there, and the horses are there, and it's just kind of a neat environment to be around. Vermont is known for having a lot of covered bridges, so it's just a very picturesque place to see. So anyway, the night before we had our dinner, we got ourselves ready. We're getting in our tents, and I laid all my stuff out that I would need the next day. Now the aid stations are 5 miles apart at Vermont, which doesn't seem like that far, and really it's not. But if you're struggling or something happens, you're still going to need to carry water, and you may not know exactly how much food or what they'll have at each aid station. So I decided to carry my water pack with my water, and I carried a couple of Justin's peanut butter things because I like the almond butter and the peanut butter. I had one drop bag, or actually I had two. I put one at mile 58, which I put a dry pair of shoes in, and I put my headlamp because I didn't know what time that I would actually need my headlamp after that. And then around mile 76, I put an extra battery for my headlamp in case my batteries went dead and I needed another one. So other than that, I decided I would just eat and drink whatever's on the course. Like Western States, I decided to eat real food and to drink water, and I didn't take any salt tablets. So I felt like, you know, I had a plan. The race started in the dark, and I obviously was going to run as much as I could in the dark. And as it got hotter and during the day, I would slow down. And then when nighttime came, I would try to pick it up. And I definitely wanted to be able to run when my friend Alicia was able to run with me. In Vermont, you're allowed to have a pacer, but only for the last 30 miles. So at 4 o'clock in the morning, we're at the race start, which is actually right where we camped. So everything is very nice. You really just get up, put your clothes on, and go down there. It's like I'm standing there with a cup of coffee, and it's time to go. It's like, oh, put it down and go. And it started downhill, so that was really nice. But it's misty rain, and of course, in the beginning, it's dark. So I had carried a handheld flashlight with me. And then, you know, when the light came, I just put it away. But it actually ended up being rainy and overcast for most of the day. And even though the drizzle, the rain, I don't always like to run in the rain because it's very wet on the feet and you can develop blisters. The overcast made it nice because it really kept the sun from blaring. I found that Vermont is mostly dirt roads, which is what they drive on in Vermont, not even pavement. They have dirt roads and a mud season and all this stuff. So a lot of the race there was on these dirt roads. Only about 20% is on a single track trail. I feel as though I personally am better on a single track trail because the dirt road reminds me a lot of the regular road. which is okay, except it does make you tend to want to go faster than you probably need to go in the beginning. So I just tried to hold back and just do it. And I found that really the only problem I had was around mile 20. I started feeling that I was developing blisters on one of my feet. Now I did the same thing I did at Western with the toe socks, and I had my shoes, and I thought that it was perfect, but I still developed 2 blisters. So at mile 58, where I had my shoes, I stopped, and I had the nurse there pop the blisters, and we put moleskin on them, and I put my dry shoes and socks on, and I must say that I felt like a new person. It was awesome. You know, after 30 miles of just thinking about the pain in this foot, it was really a nice relief to not think about that anymore. And about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the sun came out, and I would say from 3 to maybe 7, it got pretty hot. But after that, it started drizzling again. The sun went in, and I didn't, the heat was not really an issue at all. So I met my friend Cynthia Heady, and we just started running along. And from that point, I would say that, you know, in the beginning, it seemed like I would be running with people, and then they would be going too fast, so I would slow down, because you have to really pay attention to yourself and the way that your own race needs to go. But towards the end, from mile 30 on, or with 70 on, I don't think anybody at all passed us, and we passed several people, and I just felt like that Alicia and I really were running well together. We'd still walk up the hills, and we would run down as fast as we could. And you know, in the back of my head, I didn't have a watch on, and I didn't want to know, because I wanted to stick to my plan, because I still have to go do Leadville coming up, and I wanted to make sure that I finished strong and I had no problems. But I wanted to do under 24 hours if I could, because you only get the belt buckle for 24 hours and under. So when I got to, I think of like mile 95, the guy at the place said, you know, you have an hour and a half. If you can run this last 5.5 miles in an hour and a half, you can beat 24 hours. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, I couldn't really tell if I could do it or not do it, because it seemed like we were just going uphill the entire time. But, and Alicia offered, she said, Cynthia, I'll get my phone out and we'll see what time it is. And I thought, no, don't tell me, because then it'll make me change my plan, and I don't want to know. And if I'm over 24 hours, I have 30 hours to finish. It's still okay. But we kept on, we'd go uphill and we'd run down. And then eventually we came along this curve, and we came down, and I saw the time clock, and it was 23 hours and 31 minutes. And I was so excited. I really didn't know that I would break 24 hours, even though I wanted to. So I was very excited. So I found that the race, I was very happy. There was nothing, I felt great afterwards. I had no issues. I say the week following Vermont, the only thing I found the same as the week following Western States is I needed more sleep. I found that I was very tired, but I didn't have any swelling, and I didn't have any nausea, and I have had no injury. So I can only say that I'm very happy with the way that everything played out. So I think that I didn't really know going into Vermont if I had even played it right, because there's 3 weeks between Western States and Vermont, and I was a little concerned about what to do between those 3 weeks. But I took the first week off completely, and then the second week, by Wednesday, I ran like 15 miles, and then basically I just ran a few miles after that for several days, and that was it. So now I have longer between now and Leadville, so I know that my training plan between these two will be a little bit different, but I think proper rest is the key to success, probably, that in the Grand Slam that I can tell so far. So all in all, Vermont is a beautiful state. It's a great addition to the Grand Slam, and I suggest that anybody go do that race that wants to. I think Vermont would be a really good first 100-miler if you have not done 100 miles before, because even though it is all hills, you've got to think that it may take longer to get up the hill, but then you can run down the hill, and you can always recover going back up. And with the aid stations being 5 miles apart, it makes it an easy training ground for you to think about, you know, to practice your nutrition or to see what you might need. So anyway, that's all I have for this time, and I will talk to you later. Bye.